there is a quite an important issue with this short presentation, in that it may be difficult for the audience to discern the effects that I'm going to talk about. They are more easily appreciated by the eye directly, and the camera is not ideal for portraying these. However, we will try. The other point to bear in mind is that the model is barely 6 inches long. We are dealing with a very small scale here. Now, the model in question is a 1:700 model currently being built of a County-class guided missile destroyer moored in Portsmouth Harbour. Now, many waterline models are presented steaming through a seaway, but I have a preference for them being presented moored between buoys in calm waters of harbour. Now, a disturbed sea is to a large extent opaque, so all that needs to be presented is the surface and the disturbance of the ship creates as it moves through the water. Making these realistic is not easy. The chaotic rhythms of the sea have to be created, as does the ship's wash when it confronts the wave system of the seaway. Now, in calm water, the problem is much easier, but the challenge here is how to create a feeling of depth of water to the base on which the model is to be placed. Somehow, a surface has to be created which allows the viewer to see, to a slight extent, what lies underneath. Now, the water in Portsmouth Harbour is not exactly pure. In fact, it is filthy and has all manner of muck mingled with it. Now, this is an aerial photograph of the entrance to the harbour, and I must admit the result, when viewed at this angle, is pretty opaque. Now, let us take a look at calm water, viewed from different angles to the light from the sun. You can see how dramatically the colour is changed dependent on that angle to the light. And here is another example, close to HMS Warrior, so that we still have water that's mucky, but again, it's opaque, but perhaps not so much as it was in the entrance. Now, in building a base, the first move is to take an inert sheet of material, in this case 12mm MDF, and glue to it a sheet of high quality watercolour paper. And I have used Bockingford 200 gram. It has a rough surface. Onto this, I paint colours appropriate to the bed of the harbour. So I'm using acrylic paint in dark green, raw umber, and white. The acrylic dries fast and can be applied quite thick, so it has good covering ability. In my first efforts, the result was far too light, and as you have just seen, I then adjusted the strength of the colour, as well as creating a varied jumble of light and darker shades, which I hope will be perceived by the viewer looking down on the model. So let us look at the material that will supply the surface. Fortunately, there are now on the market clear plastic sheets which present a ripple effect and which can be used on the surface of the construct. Here you see it applied in 3 different ways, one in combination with a smoky version in the center, one using 2 clear sheets on the left and one with 1 clear sheet on the right. Now, the smoky appearance is achieved by giving one of the films a quick spray with Humbrol acrylic varnish. The trouble with using this method is that it increases the opacity and decreases the appearance of depth. There is also the problem that any light on the surface makes the whole appearance far too light because the treated sheet seems to absorb light within itself. I found that by placing 2 sheets of clear ripple effect film, one on top of the other, a reduced degree of opacity could be achieved, and the variations of colour and tone in the harbour floor could just be discerned when viewed from above. I must stress that the effect of light on the base changes its effect dramatically. If we return to the picture incorporating HMS Warrior's bow, we will see mooring chains disappearing in the water. I considered whether something of that nature could be set up on the model water, but of course it can only be viewed sensibly from one angle, otherwise it would look very odd. However, the water immediately next to the destroyer, which is the model that's going to go on there, could benefit from creating a slight blackness close to the hull, where the hull would lie if a hull existed. Accordingly, I'll be painting a very fine light black line round where the model will sit to give the appearance of the hull disappearing under the murky waters. Now, the building of this model by Alistair will be subject of a later talk, but here are two shots of a part complete, sitting on top of, not in, a ripple effect sheet. Now remember that the model is barely 6 inches long, and that accordingly the ripple effect must be minute. Now, if you're going online and look for ripple effect acrylic sheeting, you will be offered a number of choices of different scales. With the example used here, the size of sheet is limited to about 12 by 5 inches, which is fine for working at 1 to 700. But it is possible to get larger sheets or even rolls when working to a larger scale. Finally, this is what it's all about. Here is HMS Hampshire entering Montreal Harbour when visiting Expo 67, commanding officer. Right, that's it. Thank you.